And good evening tonight. The U.S. Senate has confirmed Kevin Warsh as the next chair of the Federal Reserve. Trump's nominee was approved by a largely party line vote with the support of just one Democrat. He is set to be sworn in next week in time for the Fed's next interest rate meeting, already scheduled in June. Warsh takes over from Jerome Powell at a precarious time. Wholesale inflation jumped 6% in April on an annual basis. I'm going to repeat that again, 6%. We learned just yesterday that consumer prices rose 3.8% last month. The two numbers weaken the case for an immediate rate cut. Stephen Moore is a former economic advisor to President Trump, and he joins us now. Really good to see you and have you on the program on what is a historic day as far as the Fed is concerned. It definitely is. So why do you believe Kevin Warsh will make a good Fed chair? And do you believe he can withstand the pressure you and I both know is coming from the president to lower interest rates?
Well, great to be with you. Thanks so much for having me. I've known Kevin Warsh for years. He will be an outstanding Fed chairman. He is probably one of the most knowledgeable people in the country on monetary policy. He has served at the Federal Reserve Board. I have to say, shame on 46 Democrats who voted against him when he's so well qualified, maybe the most well qualified new Fed chairman since Alan Greenspan back 20 some years ago. So really very solid pick. I do think he will be independent. What he believes in is making the dollar as good as gold, making sure that we keep inflation low. And as you just said, that's going to be a challenge with these higher energy prices. And of course, to ensure that the United States dollar remains the world reserve currencies. Those are three of his top priorities.
And President Trump had that exact same confidence in Chair Jerome Powell when he ushered him in as well and nominated him. So how about it? How does he really navigate this?
Well, first of all, you're right. I mean, every time I would see the president, the first thing he'd say is that he said, "I made a bad pick on Jerome Powell." I said, "Yes, sir, you did." Powell, his tenure was certainly not very successful with inflation going through the roof, up to 9% under Joe Biden. It was the worst performance since Jimmy Carter was president. So I think we will see price stability. He wants to have a price rule where interest rates are really set by what is happening with, for example, commodity prices. And so we have, in other words, we're going to have more of a kind of rule-based monetary policy rather than the Fed just making up the rules as they go along.
I'm not sure that's what Chair Powell would say he was doing, but, let's go at this. The data on inflation this week was really like throwing an incendiary device at the economy.
Yes.
And this is what Kevin Warsh will inherit. I mean, even his colleagues at Stanford University's Hoover Institution, you are well aware, a lot of them your colleagues as well, they're fearful about what he's about to take on. John Cochran there, a colleague of his at Hoover, said, I'm not sure if you've heard this line, he told Politico, Kevin Warsh is like the dog who caught the car. So what now?
Right. You're exactly right. This is going to be a very tough period. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, we have inflation that has been unleashed. Hopefully it will be temporary. I think most people would agree that this inflation will come down as soon as we see, hopefully very soon, the Strait of Hormuz open and the oil flowing again. And once the oil price comes down, I think, because most of that increase that you were talking about, which is very worrisome, I agree, is a result of the higher energy prices, which means that food prices are higher, manufacturing costs are higher, et cetera. But you're right, this is going to be a very difficult few months for him to navigate that, especially because he has President Trump, who wants him to cut interest rates. But right now, I don't really see any case for cutting rates, given the fact that we have inflation that came in at a 3.8% read.
Yeah, and that might be the understatement of this quarter so far, Stephen Moore.
Yeah, right. Well,
that's not, at this point, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, nobody can really predict what's going to happen with the oil price. It's so volatile right now, and things change. I've never seen anything like this with the herky-jerky daily. One day the oil price goes down to $80, then it goes up to $90, and then at one point it went up to $110, and then it's falling. It changes almost every hour, so it's very difficult.
But that's because of the president and his strategy on this war. The Strait of Hormuz at this hour remains closed. What levers do you
Yes.
believe the president has to open it, if he even does want to open the Strait of Hormuz? I mean, you heard him speak to Americans yesterday saying, I'm not really thinking about Americans' financial situations. He's just thinking about whether or not Iran will have a nuclear weapon. That was cold comfort for anyone looking for any help on affordability right now.
Yeah, but it certainly makes the world a lot safer place, and that the fact that they can't blow up cities and so on is and Trump is looks set, and this is for people to decide themselves. Do you think that short term, uh, the long term gain of having taking away the nuclear weapons of these crazy people in Iran is worth paying more for gasoline now? I mean, people will make up their own minds about that. But look, he is in China right now, the president, meeting with President Xi in Beijing, and one of the things on the agenda is to try to get China. China is more reliant on Middle East oil than the United States is. So, he's going to need some international cooperation. But I will say this: the one thing that's really important is that Trump has an energy policy that is basically drill, baby, drill, produce as much energy here at home as we can. Thank God, or we'd probably be paying about $8 a barrel a gallon of gas if we had a kind of Joe Biden net zero policy of trying to shut down American oil and gas. We're now the single biggest producer of oil and gas in the world, and that has inoculated us somewhat from these high costs in the Middle East.
Well, some argue that if we did what China did and in fact had a lot more renewable energy, that might insulate us as well, the way China has insulated itself, at least for a matter of months. Stephen Moore, we have to leave it there, but please come back as we continue to watch Kevin Warsh in his new role. Appreciate it.